How worthy is he? How worthy is he? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. How worthy is he? How worthy is he?
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. How beautiful are you? How beautiful are you? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. He's beautiful. Mm. 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 Come on, come on, come on, come on. Worship him. Oh, Zion. Come on, Zion. Worship him. Worship him.
Worthy, how worthy is your name, Yahuwah. How worthy is your name. We worship you. We worship your name. How worthy is your name. How worthy is your name, Yahuwah. How worthy is your name. All right, Yahuwah. We worship you. We worship your name. How worthy is your your name. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, you're worthy to be praised. Yahuwah, Yahuwah, you're worthy to be praised. Barak Yahuwah, Rumamu Yahuwah, we worship your Kadosh name. We bow down before you. Come sup with us, Abba, this day. Hallelujah. How worthy is he? How worthy is he? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We bow down to you. We come to bring you your food. We pray we are this day approved. Barak Yahuwah Aliyu. We sing praises unto you. We send sacrifices to you. Barak Yahuwah Aliyu. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba.
Hallelujah.
I'm just in awe of you. 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 I just thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
I'm just in awe of you. I'm just in awe of you. I just love you. I'm so in love with you. I don't know what to do, but I just love you. I'm so in awe of you. I'm so in awe of you. And I just thank you. I just thank you. I love you, Yahuwah, and I thank you.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yahuwah, thank you, Abba. Barak Yahuwah. Yes.
Barak Yahuwah. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Abba.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you, Abba.
Thank
Thank you, Abba.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Abba.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abba.
Thank you, Father. We thank you.
Thank you, Abba.
Hallelujah.
Yes, Abba.
Thank you, Father. We thank you.
Thank you, Abba. Tahalee 150. Tahalee 150. Praise Yah. Praise all in his set apart place. Praise him for his eminent space. Praise him for his mighty acts. Praise him according to his excellent greatness. Praise him with the blowing of the ram's horn.
Yes.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes. Praise him with the harp and lyre. Praise him with the tambourine and dance.
Yes, Abba. Barak
Tambourine and
Yahuwah.
dance.
Barak Yahuwah. Yes, Abba.
Praise him with the string instrument. Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes.
Everything has
And flutes. Thank you.
Barak Yahuwah.
Praise him with the sounding cymbals.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes.
Barak
Praise him
Yahuwah.
with the sounding cymbals.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes. Let all that have breath praise God.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Hallelujah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Oh, Barak his name.
Abba Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Worthy.
Barak Yahuwah.
Worthy. Sham Yahushua. Yes, Abba. Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Thank you.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Thank you.
Yes,
Barak
Abba.
Yahuwah.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes. It's a double portion
Barak
today.
Yahuwah.
Oh, a double portion.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Double portion
Yes,
today.
Abba.
Double portion.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Yes, Abba.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Worthy is he, worthy is he, worthy of praise, ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, worthy of praise, ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, worthy of praise, ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, worthy of praise, ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, worthy of praise, ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, worthy of praise, oh ancient of days. How worthy is he, 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 so worthy of praise, oh ancient of days.
Yes.
How worthy is he, just how worthy is he, worthy of praise, oh ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he,
Yeah.
worthy of praise,
Yeah.
oh ancient of days. How worthy is he,
Yeah.
how worthy is he, worthy of praise, ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, so worthy of praise, oh ancient of days. How worthy is he, how worthy is he, so worthy of praise, oh ancient of days. How worthy is he, just how worthy is he, so worthy of praise, oh ancient of days. How worthy is he, Rock Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Yeah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Hallelujah. Come on, family, let's praise him.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Hallelujah. family. Praise
Barak Yahuwah.
Bless those
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Yes,
Yes.
We worship
Worthy of
you.
all praise. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Abba.
Hallelujah. 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 Family, let's praise Him. Hallelujah. Let's worship Him. Hallelujah. Praise Him. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Yo. Come on, Miss Parker. Praise him. Praise him, Miss Parker. Barak Yahuwah. 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 Barak Yahuwah.
Thank you, Abba.
His remnant will praise him because his remnant has a reason to praise.
Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. His remnant will praise him because his remnant has a reason to praise. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. His remnant will push beyond the flesh and operate in Ruach.
Yes.
And worship him irrespective of how they feel because his remnant has a reason to praise him. His remnant has a reason to praise. Barak Yahuwah. 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 Barak Yahuwah.
Abba, I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. I just want to give you praise. Praise and esteem on this yom. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Oh, we worship you. How worthy is
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Sing to Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Sing to Yahuwah. Sing to Yahuwah. Sing to Yahuwah. Sing to Yahuwah.
Thank you, Abba.
Sing to Yah a new song, for he have done some marvelous things. His right hand, his Kadosh all have gotten Yah the victory. Yahuwah has made known his deliverance in his righteousness, as he openly shown in the sight of the heathen. Yah has remembered his truth, his compassion, and his truth towards Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen Yah's deliverance. Salvation of our Elohim. Yeah, Yahusha, you know what I mean. Yeah. Make a joyful noise to Yahuwah, all the earth. Yeah, yeah. Make a loud noise and be glad and sing Yah praise. Yeah, yeah. And sing Yah praise. Yeah, yeah. Sing unto Yahuwah with the harp, with the trumpet, with the sound of a horn, and make a trumpet and make a noise to Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Sing unto Yahuwah a new song.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Miss Parker, Yahuwah wants to send me by today to give us another reminder of what we're celebrating and why we're celebrating, so that
Can't hear you, Elder.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
It's not muted, but we can't hear you.
Can you still not hear me?
You couldn't hear them.
You wouldn't side with Elder.
Now we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now.
You can hear me now. So you can hear me now.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah.
Yes.
Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Abba just wants to send me by real quick, Mishpaka, to remind us of what we're celebrating.
We can't hear you again.
Can't hear you. I think the mic might be blocked or something. I'm not sure.
And it's very low.
Yeah, it's very low.
We bind you in the Basham of Yahusha. Hamashiach, we bind you. We bind you, Abba. Bind hand and foot every plan of the adversary. Let him not hinder this time. Let him not hinder this day. In the righteous name of Yahusha.
Thank you, Abba.
Hamashiach.
That's right.
So, Bisham Yahusha.
Thank you, Abba.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now we can. Yes.
So you can't hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Real low, though.
Is it the lock?
No.
Yes, it's very low.
Can you still hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can't hear you, Elder.
Oh, Abba.
Yes. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Let us pray against whatever that is. Abba Yahuwah, we come thanking you, Abba.
Yes.
Thank you on this beautiful feast day, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you for what you're doing in the lives of people, Abba. We thank you for this gathering, Abba. Oh, we thank you for your love. We thank you for placing us on the ancient path, Abba.
Yes, Father.
Now, Abba, in the name of Yahushua
Every hindering ruach of witchcraft, we bind this day in the name of Yahusha. We bind you hand and foot and cast you out of here in the righteous name of Yahusha. You wicked ruach of witchcraft, send down fire, Abba. Send down fire, send down fire upon its head and destroy it in the righteous name of Yahusha. Send the destroyer, send the destroyer, send the destroyer. Basham Yahusha. Basham Yahusha.
Yes, Abba Yahuwah.
Abba, right now.
Barak Yahuwah.
Send down the destroyer. Any hindrance, any hindrances on your people.
Yes, Abba Yahuwah.
Out
Yes,
there and
Abba.
try to destroy you.
Yes, Abba. Yes, Abba.
Send down and
We
destroy you.
rebuke you in the name of
Basham Yahusha.
Basham Yahusha.
Oh, thank you, Abba. Thank you. Thank you, Abba. Be it. Be it.
So be it. So be
Thank
it.
you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Yes, thank you, Abba.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Elder, what if you just try to log off and log back on?
Thank you, Abba.
That's what was put in my ruach.
Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba.
That's what was put in my ruach, but I would have to end the meeting and restart it.
Thank you, Abba.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that. I'm going to end the meeting. I'm going to restart it.
Thank you, Abba.
Yes, that's what he told me
So
to.
be it. So be it. So be it. So be it.
Did you turn that off, the phone?
No.
Okay.
Continuing to go. I'm going to send this to your email address, and I'm going to need you to copy and paste it into the chat. Just send it to you. Testing. Testing, testing, testing. Looks like my mic is working.
The top one, join Zoom meeting.
Let me see. Let me see. Two down.
Give your stay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Elder.
Elder, I got a question.
Wait.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, Elder.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Barak Yahuwah. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba.
Yes, thank you, Abba, for the speakers.
Thank you, Abba.
To the Abba.
Thank you, Abba. Thank you, Abba. So this is a day of celebration, Mashpaka. This is a day of celebration, and we're going to celebrate and we're going to feast. But Abba sent me by to give us a quick reminder again of what we're celebrating and why it is that we're feasting.
Yes,
And prayerfully, this will put a little more shamka and celebration in your hearts when you hear what thus says Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Rock Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So to those who will listen to this later on YouTube, we welcome you from the four corners of the YAHUAH'S. And we say Shabbat Shalom to you wherever you are, wherever your feet touch the soil. We say Shabbat Shalom to the elder Ak, Yahuda. Shabbat Shalom to the younger Ak, Ephraim. Shabbat Shalom to the former stranger and Gur and Goyim, or Gentile, or nation, who's no longer a stranger, but having been engrafted into the Bayith, the house of Yasha'al, through Hanatsah, through the branch, who is Yahushua HaMashiach. through his Sheddam and via the Makua Tabala, which is to say the immersion in his Kadush name, whereby you have been impaled with him, and whereby you have died with him, and been buried with him, and been resurrected to the newness of life, and whereby you have received the Ruach of adoption, the Ruach HaKadosh, who is the spirit of adoption and the seal of redemption, whereby you have been adopted into the family of Yahuwah, whereby you are no longer now a stranger, but a fellow citizen of the Bayif of Yasha'al. And as a fellow citizen, you are now whereby privy to the same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yasha'al and to Yasha'al alone. Shabbat Shalom to you worldwide, wherever your feet touch the soil, on this most Kadush Yom of Yom Taru'ah. We welcome you as you celebrate with us, as we celebrate this feast in Ruach and in truth, with Shamka of heart, understanding what it means and understanding how much of a privilege it is not only to understand what it means, but the privilege of even having the privilege of celebrating it. Barak Yahuwah, of him even accepting us, allowing us to partake of his Kadush feast. Even with uncleanness on us, he allows us to celebrate and partake of his Kadush feast. And for that, we say Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So Abba wants to quickly remind us, Mashpaka, why we are here, why we are celebrating this, what we are celebrating, why we are feasting, and why we should celebrate with such fervor. Now, that's already been covered as to why we must celebrate with such fervor, why we must celebrate this feast as if we've lost our proverbial minds. So that's already been covered in a previous teaching that Abba has spoken through his servant, but he wants to give us a quick reminder as we celebrate this day. So as we continue to celebrate, perhaps that will raise the volume a little bit, and perhaps that will raise the level of celebration and shamka in our hearts. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So once again, looking at Uikra, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, and he's going to show us some things now. If you've watched that previous teaching with respect to the Feast of Trumpets, he's getting ready to show us some things that weren't spoken in that one. He's getting ready to show us something different. Barak Yahuwah. Uikra, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, verses 23 through 25. Uikra, the 23rd chapter, verses 23 through 25. That is Leviticus, Uikra, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, verses 23 through 25. Indeed, the remnant ought to be celebrating. The remnant ought to be celebrating. Indeed, again, he spoke to my Aisha and I this morning and said, behold, I'm coming soon. I'm coming soon. If you are remnant, you understand that this is not for everybody. This is not for everybody. When he comes, he's not coming for everybody. He's coming for a remnant within a remnant. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's coming for a remnant within a remnant. And if you are that remnant within the remnant, you ought to be celebrating this day. Even if you aren't, you ought to be celebrating this day. But if you are the remnant within the remnant, you ought to be celebrating this day in Ruach and in truth, like you've lost your proverbial minds. Yes, you should. Yes, you should. Beginning at verse 23. And Yahuwah spoke to Masha, saying, speak to the children of Yasha'al, saying, in the 7th new month, on the 1st day of the new month, and this is the day in which we are on, you have a rest, a Shabbat. And we understand that Shabbat is comprised of the letters Shin, Ba'it, and Ta. Shin, Ba'it, and Ta. We understand that Shin represents our front teeth. It represents teeth. And Ba'it represents a house. Barak Yahuwah. Ba'it represents a house. And Ta is a representation of covenant. It is represented by an X or mark or a seal or a sign And so we understand that the Shabbat, everybody mute your mics, Mishpaka. We do not want to distract from the rest of the Mishpaka. Barak Yahuwah. We do not want them to miss a word. So make sure that your mics are muted. Barak Yahuwah. So that we understand then wherever we see the Abrahamic letter Tar, it is representative of covenant, because indeed he is the Alaf and the Tar. And so when we are walking in covenant with him, we are what? We are resting on his Shabbat Yums. And not only that, we are walking this ancient path, and we are celebrating his feast in Ruach and in truth. Indeed, with the Ba'if being a representation of house, we understand that his people who are in his house, who are called by his name, the house of Yaqub, the house of Yasha'al, we celebrate his feast days. We rest when he says rest, in Ruach and in truth, and we do what he says to do, when he says to do it, and we do not turn from the right or to the left of what our Abinu tells us to do. And so, again, mute your mics, Mishpaka. Make sure that your mics are muted. You do not want to take away Barak Yahuwah. He has warned you once. He has warned you twice. He does not want you to take away from the words in which he's speaking through his servant. And so if you're being a distraction, he's going to deal with you. Make sure that your mics are muted. Oh, I still hear him. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.
Brother Shaka, mute your mic, please.
Me?
Yes.
I thought it was moving. I'm sorry.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. So you have a rest, a Shabbat, and we understand that the Shabbat is what? Is a sign and a seal and a mark of the everlasting covenant between Yahuwah and his people. This is what the Tar is representative of, because Yahuwah indeed is the Alaf and the Tar. He is the beginning and the everlasting covenant. He is the Shabbat. He is rest. He is that rest that we long to enter into, in which all the feast days point towards. Barak Yahuwah. And so as we rest on this day, it's not only a Shabbat, it is not only a rest, but it is also what? A remembrance. This is key. This is key to understanding what Abba is trying to tell us on this Yom. We must not discount any words that are written. We must take into account, and we must we must look at, and we must meditate on every word in which he speaks. And so he says that it is also a remembrance. A remembrance. And this is the Abrahamic word zakah. Zakah. It is also a remembrance. Write it down. Write that down, that this day is a remembrance. A remembrance. This is very key, that this day is a remembrance. Zakah. Zakah. A remembrance of what? Taru'ah. Taru'ah. We're going to look more into this again, into the Abrahamic word Taru'ah. Taru'ah. It says you're going further on, you do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire. Made by fire. Indeed, the bulls of our lips that we were bringing earlier during praise time, this was the offering made by fire that he wants from us. But if you've been following along, you understand that on Yom Taru'ah, that there are extra offerings required, meaning there is extra celebration required. Not only are we celebrating the beginning of the 7th month, the new month, not only are we celebrating the new month, which has its own individual offerings made by fire, which has its own individual bulls, the slaughter offerings of our lips, but we're also celebrating Yom Taru'ah, which has separate slaughter offerings for it, which has separate slaughter offerings made by fire given to Yahuwah on it. On it, indeed, if if you have been reborn by fire, if you have been reborn of fire, guess what? You're going to bring him offerings of fire. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. If you have been born of fire, you're going to bring him offerings of fire. Yes, you are. Do you not understand that you are that offering? And when you are consumed by the fire of the Ruach, that you are an offering? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are a crime offering. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Your crime has to be consumed with his consuming fire. And so if you're not bringing him an offering made by fire, then perhaps you have not been a crime offering yet. Perhaps his fire has not come upon you. Oh, you ought to examine yourself. You ought to examine yourself. You see, he's coming back for a remnant within a remnant. A remnant within a remnant who is what? Who has been purged by fire. Who brings him offerings made by fire. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Take these words for granted if you want to. Let's look at Taru'ah. Let's look at Taru'ah. What does Taru'ah mean? It is Strong's Hebrew 8643. What does Taru'ah mean? What does Taru'ah mean? It is the Abarit letters. Again, Ta. And again, wherever you see the Abarit letter Ta, it is representative of covenant. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Do you not understand when that trumpet blows, he's coming back for his covenant people? Oh, my Father, do you understand that this is all about covenant? And there ought to be a special praise upon your lip if you are, in fact, his covenant people. Yes, there are. Yes, there should. It is comprised again of Ta, which is a representation of covenant, and Rosh, which means head or beginning. Which means head or beginning. Indeed, so far we understand that Taru'ah represents covenant and it represents Rosh. And so we understand that it represents Yahuwah altogether already by the indication of the Ta and the Rosh. He is the head. It is also comprised of the Abarit letter U. U, which is a representation of a tent peg or something that joins or affixes. Something that joins or affixes, akin to a nail being nailed and joining and affixing something to another surface. Ayan. It is also comprised of the Abarit letter Ayan and Hey. Ayan and Hey. So what does Taru'ah mean? What does Taru'ah mean? It is an acclamation of gladness. An acclamation of gladness. Or a battle cry, especially clangor of trumpets, as an alarm, alurum, or alarm. It is a blowing. It means to blow. Taru'ah means to blow or blowing. Indeed, Yom Teruah also more accurately means what? Day of blowing. Yom meaning day, and Taru'ah meaning blowing. So it also means day of blowing. Day of blowing. What else does it mean? Besides day of blowing the trumpets. It also means gladness or yubel or jubel, gladness or celebration. It also means a loud noise, celebration, shouting. It also means to shout. It also means to shout. What are we shouting for? What are we celebrating? What are we blowing for? What is all the clamor about? What is all the clamor about on this day? What is it all about? Joyful or glad. It means to make a glad sound. A glad sound, but it also means alarm, signal, sound of tempest, shout or blast of war or alarm or gladness. Alarm of war, war cry, battle cry, blast, shout for gladness, shout for gladness. So Taru'ah, it means all these things. It means all these things. Yom Teruah, day of blowing, or day of gladness, or day of shouting, or day of celebration. It means all of this. Day of shouting, day of gladness, day of celebration, day of making a loud noise unto Yahuwah. Making a loud noise unto Yahuwah. But I call your attention back to remembrance. It also means remembrance, zakah. Zakah. What does zakar mean? What does zakar mean? Actually, here in this instance, this is not zakar, but this word here, zakar, is a root word, or is the root word of the actual word here used for remembrance. And so the word here, and we're going to get to it in just a second, it comes from zakar. And so they mean the same thing. They mean the exact same thing. And so while it is not zakar, while it is zakrun, it is zakrun, but it is from Strong's Hebrew 2142. Now this is Strong's Hebrew 2146, zakrun, but it comes from Strong's Hebrew number 2142, which is zakar, What does it mean? What does it mean? Listen, a memorable thing, or day or writing. A memorial, a reminder, a remembrance. A memorial, a reminder, remembrance. Now the question is, what is he reminding us of in Yom Taru'ah? What is it memorializing? And what is it that he wants us to remember? What is it what's the important thing that he wants us to memorialize and remember? And what is it that he wants to remind us of that causes us to make such a clamor, such a loud shout, such a loud celebratory sound? What is it that we are to remember that should put such gladness, that should give us such gladness of heart to cause such a clamor? Indeed, we spoke earlier, Abba spoke that zakrun is, the root of zakrun is zakar. And what does zakar mean? Indeed, it means the same thing. It is the root of zakrun. It means to remember. It means to recall. It means to call to mind. It means to call to mind. What is it that he wants us to remember? What is it that he wants us to remember? Not only remember, but what does he want us to look forward to? What does he want us to remember, and what does he want us to look forward to? Let's look now at Exodus, the 13th chapter. Let's look at Exodus, the 13th chapter. Shamut, Exodus, the 13th chapter. Barak Yahuwah. Shamut, Exodus, the 13th chapter, verses 1 through 3. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Kadush to me all the firstborn, the one opening the womb among the children of Yasha'al, among man and among beast. It is mine. It is mine. And Moshe said to the people, listen here, remember, zakah, remember this day in which you went out of Mashraim, out of the house of slavery. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought you out of this place. And whatever is leaving shall not be eaten. I'm going to read that again. And Moshe said to the people, remember zakah this day. Memorialize it. Remember it. Recall it. Bring it back to remembrance. Remember this day in which you went out of Mashraim, out of the house of slavery. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought you out of this place. And whatever is leaving you shall not be eaten. Abba wants to remind us that what? That we are back now in Mashraim. We are back here. You see, our ancestors didn't remember. They didn't remember. And they went right back into Mashraim. In other words, they went right back into crime. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And because they went right back into crime and did not remember, now we are now here in our land of captivity. They didn't remember. Yet he is calling us to remember, to remember what? To remember what? Firstly, he wants to remind us that we are back in Mashraim. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We are back in Mashraim again. Yes, we are. Let's look at Leviticus, Uikra, the 26th chapter, verses 14, beginning at verse 14. Let's look at Uikra, Leviticus, the 26th chapter, verse 14, beginning at verse 14. And we're going to read down through verse 46. Beginning at verse 14, it reads, "But if you do not obey me, and do not do all these commands, and if you reject my laws, or if your being loathes my right rulings, so that you do not do all my commands, but break my covenant, I also do this to you. I shall appoint sudden alarm over you, wasting disease and inflammation, destroying the eyes and consuming the life. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemy shall eat it, and I shall set my face against you, and you shall be smitten before your enemies. And those who hate you shall rule over you, and you shall flee when no one pursues you. And after all this, if you do not obey me, then I shall punish you 7 times more for your crimes. And I shall break the pride of your power, and shall make your heavens, your shamayim, like iron, and your earth like bronze. And your strength shall be spent in vain, and your land not yield its crops, nor the trees of the land yield their fruit. And if you walk contrary to me, and refuse to obey me, I shall bring on you 7 times more plagues, according to your crimes, and send wild beasts among you, which shall bereave you of your children. And I shall cut off your livestock, and make you few in number, and your highways shall be deserted. And if you are not instructed by me by these, but walk contrary to me, then I also shall walk contrary to you. And I myself shall strike you 7 times for your crimes. And I shall bring against you a sword, executing the vengeance of my covenant. And you shall gather together in your cities, and I shall send pestilence among you, and you shall be given into the hand of the enemy. When I have cut off your supply of bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in one oven, and they shall bring back to you your bread by weight, and you shall eat and not be satisfied. And if in spite of this you do not obey me, but walk contrary to me, then I shall walk contrary to you in wrath. And I myself shall punish you 7 times for your crimes. And you shall eat the flesh of your sons, and eat the flesh of your daughters. And I shall destroy your high places, and cut down your sun pillars, and put your carcasses on the carcasses of your idols. And my being shall loathe you, and I shall turn your cities into ruins, and lay your Kadush places waste, and not smell your sweet fragrances. And I shall lay the land waste, and your enemies who dwell in it shall be astonished at it. And I shall scatter you among the nations, and I shall scatter you among the nations, and draw a sword after you. And your land shall be desert, and your cities ruins, and the land enjoy its Shabbatut, as long as it lies waste, and you are in your enemy's land. Then the land would rest, and enjoy its Shabbatut. As long as it lies waste, it rests. For the time it did not rest on you. For the time it did not rest on your Shabbatut, when you dwelt in it. And as for those of you who are left, I shall send faintness into your hearts in the hands of their enemies. And the sound of a shaken leaf shall cause them to flee. And they shall flee as though retreating from a sword. And they shall fall when no one pursues. And they shall stumble over one another, as from before a sword, when no one pursues. And you shall be unable to stand before your enemies. And you shall perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up. And those of you who are left rot away in their crookedness in your enemies' lands, and also in their fathers' crookedness, rot away with them. But if they confess their crookedness, and the crookedness of their fathers with their trespass, in which they trespassed against me, and that they also have walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies, if their uncircumcised heart is then humbled, and they accept the punishment of their crookedness, then, listen here, I shall remember. Zakah. Zakah. Then I shall remember. Zakah. Zakah. My covenant with Yaqub. And also my covenant with Itzchak. And also remember. Zakah. Zakah. My covenant with Abraham. And remember. Zakah. The land. For the land was abandoned by them, and enjoying its Shabbatut, while lying waste without them. And they were paying for their crookedness, because they rejected my right rulings, and because their being loathed my laws. And yet for all this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I shall not reject them, nor shall I loathe them, so as to destroy them, and break my covenant with them. For I am Yahuwah their Elohim. Then I shall remember for their sake the covenant of the ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Mashraim, before the eyes of the nations, to be their Elohim. I am Yahuwah. These are the laws and the right rulings and the Taru'ah, which Yahuwah made between himself and the children of Yasha'al on Mount Sinai by the hand of Masha. Indeed, we are back in Mashraim again. We are back in the land of crime again. He has brought us back. We are here. We are here where our ancestors did not remember. They did not remember that he had delivered them from the land of Mashraim. He is calling upon us to remember, to Zakrun, to Zakah. He is calling upon us to remember. Listen, we are back here in accordance with Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 68. And many of us are already familiar with this. But for those who may be listening to this on YouTube later on, for your sake, I'll read it anyway. Dabarim of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And Yahuwah shall bring you back to Mashraim in ships, by a way of which I said to you, you are never to see it again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one to buy, but no one to redeem you. Indeed, looking now at Deuteronomy chapter 30. Dabarim of Deuteronomy chapter 30. I was taking us somewhere. Deuteronomy of Dabarim chapter 30. Let's read verses 1 through 8. What is it that he wants us to remember? What is it that he wants us to celebrate like we've lost our proverbial minds? What is it? Deuteronomy of Dabarim chapter 30 verses 1 through 8. And it shall be when all these words come upon you, the barakah and the curse, which I have set before you, placed before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the nations where Yahuwah your Elohim drives you, and shall turn back to you, and shall turn back to Yahuwah your Elohim, and obey his voice, according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and with all your being, you and your children. Then Yahuwah your Elohim shall turn back your captivity. He shall turn back your captivity, and shall have compassion on you. And he shall turn back and gather you from all the peoples where Yahuwah your Elohim has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the Shamayim or heavens, from there Yahuwah your Elohim does gather you. And from there Yahuwah your Elohim does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he shall do good to you, and increase you more than your fathers. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall circumcise your heart, and the heart of your seed, to love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. And you shall turn back and you shall turn back and obey the voice of Yahuwah and do all his commands, which I command you today. Now, if you are a student of scripture, you understand that this is the gathering of his people. This is the seventh trump. The seventh trump represents two things. It represents the 7,000 year. It represents the gathering of his people back into the land. It represents the gathering of his people. It represents the deliverance from Masraim once again and being brought back into the land. It represents the 7,000 year. But it also points towards what else? It also points towards eternity. It also points towards eternity. But indeed, as Abba began to speak through his servant on this yom, he reminded us that there is what? A remnant within a remnant. There is a remnant within a remnant who ought to be celebrating this day as though they've lost their proverbial minds. Why is that? He's going to show us. He's going to show us that there's a remnant within a remnant who ought to be celebrating right now as though they've lost their proverbial minds. You see, everybody else is going to celebrate when that seven trump sounds and they are delivered from Masraim and brought back into the land. When they remember in the land of their captivity, and they confess the crookedness of their fathers and their own crookedness, then he will remember his covenant and gather them back into the land. But as Abba spoke earlier, indeed, there is a remnant within a remnant who ought to be celebrating right now as though they have lost their proverbial minds. What does he want us to remember? What does he want us to remember? Indeed, even when this trumpet sounds and the rest of the remnant is gathered on the 7,000 year and brought into the land. If you understand this, that there's a remnant within a remnant that Abba Yahuwah wants to keep from the time of trial. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. There is a remnant within the remnant that Yahuwah wants to keep from the hour of trial. The rest will have to go through the hour of trial, and they will be gathered at the 7,000 year and brought back into the land. And when they are gathered and brought back into the land, they're going to be what? They're going to be called to remember. They're going to be called to remember. Remember what? Now, in Exodus, the 13th chapter, the remembrance was what? That Yahuwah had delivered our ancestors from Masraim. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. To remember that he had delivered them from Masraim. In other words, that he had delivered them from death. That he had delivered them from slavery. That he had delivered them from crime. That he had delivered them from bondage. He called upon them to remember what he had done. To remember what he had done, and to, on this day, celebrate and remember. Not only remember what he has done, but to look forward to what he's going to do. What he is going to do. What is it that he has done, and what is it that he is going to do? And what is it that he is going to do? Now, looking here at Isaiah the 66th chapter, this is when the rest of the remnant has been gathered from the nations. Let's look at Isaiah, Isaiah chapter 66. And we're going to read verses 22 through 24. Verses 22 through 24. Beginning at verse 22. For as the new heavens, the new Shamayim, and the new earth that I make stand before me. Now, this is not eternity here yet. This is the millennial reign. But here, he's calling his people to remember something. Declares Yahuwah. So your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from new month to new month. Indeed, this is a new month here. And from Shabbat to Shabbat. Indeed, this is a Shabbat. All flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahuwah. And they shall go forth. And look upon the corpses of men who have transgressed against me. For what? To remember. To remember what it is that he he has delivered us from. To remember what it is that he has delivered us from. For their worm shall not die, and their fire not be quenched, and they shall be repulsive to all flesh. And they shall be repulsive to all flesh. And so in Exodus the 13th chapter, where we see the command to remember Zakah, he is telling them, he is commanding our ancestors to remember the fact that he now has delivered them from crime. He has delivered them from death. He has delivered them from bondage. He has delivered them from Taru'ah. He has delivered them from Taru'ah. He's calling them to remember. Do you not understand? Do you not understand when that trumpet sounds? When that trumpet sounds, that this is a representation of being delivered from Mashraim. That this of being finally delivered from Mashraim. Of being delivered from Taru'ah. Of being delivered from slavery, of bondage, or crime. This is what this represents. And we are called to what? To remember. To remember. Now, the question is, have you been delivered from crime? Have you? Have you been delivered from crime? That indeed is the question. And if you have been delivered from crime, there ought to be a celebration on your heart. There ought to be a celebration of your heart, both now and then. Both now and then. Let's look at this a little closer. A little closer. Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. Verses 1 through 15. And I saw a messenger coming down from the Shamayim, having the key to the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand. And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old. If you understand now, if you understand, this is Hashatan is what? He represents Taru'ah. He is Taru'ah. He is Taru'ah. And Mashraim represents what? It means it represents crime. It represents being in what? In bondage to him. In slavery to him. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It means being in bondage to him, being in slavery to him. Now, he's calling upon us to remember something. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's calling upon us to remember. He's already told you that when that trumpet sounds, at the 7,000 year, this is why we're reading Revelation 20. At this point, this is when Hashatan is going to be seized. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is when Taru'ah is going to be seized. And this is when crime and bondage is going to be removed from the earth. There's nothing new under the sun. This is when Mashraim is going to be destroyed. This is when Mashraim is going to be destroyed. Not eternally yet. Not eternally yet. But we're looking forward to when Mashraim is destroyed eternally. We're looking forward to it. Indeed, again, Yom Taru'ah represents the beginning of 7,000 years and the end of 7,000 years, moving into eternity when we are delivered, finally delivered from Mashraim, from crime, from bondage, from Taru'ah. From Taru'ah. But there's going to be a reprieve for 1,000 years. There's going to be a reprieve when all lawlessness and when all Torahlessness, when Mashraim, when crime and bondage is going to be seized, because all of this represents Hashatan. It's going to be seized and thrown into the pit. But as we read here again, and I saw a messenger coming down from the Shamayim, having the key of the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand. And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil, Hashatan, who is Taru'ah. Who is Taru'ah. And bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the pit of the deep. This is the millennial reign. This is the millennial reign. This is representative of Isaiah the 66th chapter. And this is what our people, this is what the remnant of those who were brought into the millennial reign are going to be called to remember. To remember, this is what I delivered you from. I delivered you from Mashraim. I delivered you from Par'ah. I delivered you from death. I delivered you from crime. Look at these dead bodies. Look at these dead bodies and remember what I've delivered you from. Look at them. Look at them. And I'm going to bring you here from month to month and from new month to new month and from Shabbat to Shabbat. I'm going to bring you here. All flesh is going to come here to worship before me. And I'm going to remind you of what I did for you. You're going to have to remember, and I'm going to give you a reminder by the dead bodies that you are going to view every time you come to worship before me. Every time you come to worship before me. Listen, and he threw him into the pit of the deep and shut him up and placed a seal over him so that the seal should lead, so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that, he has to be released for a little while. For a little while. Mashraim is going to be unleashed a little while longer upon the earth. We don't know how long that is, but for a little while longer, it's going to be unleashed again. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. And the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yahusha, and because of the word of Elohim, and who did not worship the beast, nor his image, and did not receive his mark upon their forehead or upon their hands. And they lived and reigned with Mashiach for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Glad and Kadush is the one having part in the first resurrection. Glad, glad, glad. And Kadush is the one having part in the first resurrection. Oh, there ought to be a shout in that person's mouth. There ought to be a celebration in that person's heart. And from year to year and from month to month, guess what? He's going to remind us. There's going to be a remembrance. He's going to show us the dead bodies and remind us of what it is that he delivered us from. Remind us that he has delivered us from Mashraim, that he has delivered us from death, that he has delivered us from crime, that he has delivered us from bondage and slavery. The second death possesses no authority over these, but they shall be Kahanim of Elohim and of Mashiach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the earth. Some of them who were not resurrected in the first resurrection. There is going to be some of the remnant of mankind. I don't have time to touch that in complete detail, but there's going to be a remnant of mankind left in the first resurrection. Those who did not come up against Zion to war against them. There's going to be a remnant left, and they are going to interbreed. They're going to breed with one another for 1,000 years. And after 1,000 years, they're going to come up against Zion as the sand of the sea. As the sand of the sea. It is these who he is going to lead astray. It is these who he is once again going to lead astray. So it reads here once again, Satan shall be released from prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. And they they came up over the breadth of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the Kadush ones, and the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of the Shamayim and consumed them. And the devil, Hashatan, Par'ah, who led them astray, was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false Nabi are. Here, Par'ah is going to be finally destroyed forever. Par'ah, Egypt, crime, bondage, death, right here is going to be finally destroyed forever. Indeed, Yom Teruah represents two things. It represents two release dates. It represents the release date of the 7,000 year when he is bound for 1,000 years. And Torahlessness and lawlessness and death and bondage, and crime is removed. is removed. It represents that, and it represents the conclusion of 7,000 years when Taru'ah is finally seized forever and finally destroyed forever, and crime and bondage and Mashraim and death is finally destroyed forever. Forever. And we are going to what? Celebrate and remember. And remember, there is going to be an eternal day of remembrance. Remembering this, what Yahuwah has delivered us from. Remembering that he has delivered us from crime, that he has delivered us from bondage, that he has delivered us from death, that he has delivered us from Mashraim, that he has delivered us from Taru'ah. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne and him who was sitting on it, from whose face the earth and the Shamayim fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne, and books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead was judged, and the dead were judged from what was written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Shaul gave up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. And death and Shaul were thrown into the lake of fire. And death and Shaul were thrown into the lake of fire. In other words, Mashraim. Mashraim is death. It represents death. That's why the firstborn of Mashraim died. And that's why the firstborn of Mashraim are going to die again. They're going to die again. Mashraim, it represents the flesh. It represents death. The flesh is going to die. All flesh is going to die. Mashraim represents death. It represents Taru'ah, or Hashatan. It represents crime. It represents bondage. The flesh is bondage. The flesh is slavery. And so he's calling us to remember. To remember. To remember what he's delivered us from. To remember what he's delivered us from now. And to look forward to what he's going to deliver us from in the millennial reign. But again, if you are that remnant within a remnant, you ought to be celebrating like you've lost your proverbial mind. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more. We're not going to be much longer, but we're going to talk about this a little bit more. But we ought to be remembering. It is a day of remembrance. It is a day of remembrance. And death and Shaul, Mashraim, were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Barak Yahuwah. And so turning the chapter now. Now we're here in Revelation 21. Egypt, Mashraim has been destroyed. Mashraim is representative of what again? Death. It is representative of death. It is representative of crime. Indeed, the wages of crime is death. It is representative of bondage. It is representative of Taru'ah, who is Hashatan. Who is Hashatan. Mashraim is representative of all these things. So now Mashraim, crime, death, Taru'ah, now has been thrown into the lake of fire because Hashatan has what? He has the power of death. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And so in order for death to be destroyed, he has got to be thrown into the lake of fire. And this is why Yahuwah in the 1,000-year millennial reign is not coming back in fullness yet. We won't see him as he is yet. We're going to see him in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach. Because why? The last thing to be put under the HaMashiach's feet is death. The last thing to be put underneath his feet is death. And now death, Hashatan, Mashraim, crime, bondage, having been destroyed in Revelation 20. He is calling upon us now here in Revelation 21 to recall and to remember throughout eternity, as we celebrate throughout eternity, as we shout and celebrate and praise like we've lost our proverbial minds with the blowing of shofars, with a glad sound throughout eternity, celebrating in the presence of Yahuwah and remembering what it is that he has delivered us from. Revelation 21, 1 through 7, we're almost done. And I saw a renewed Shamayim and a renewed earth. For the former Shamayim and the former earth had passed away. This immediately follows Revelation 20, when Mashraim and Par'ah and crime and death and bondage is finally destroyed, and the sea is no more. And I, Yahuchanan, saw the Kadesh city, renewed Jerusalem, coming down out of the Shamayim from Elohim, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the Shamayim saying, see, the booth of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them, and be their Elohim. Now here at this point, death is destroyed. Mashraim is destroyed. Oh, the trumpet has sounded. The trumpet has sounded. Death is destroyed. Crime is destroyed. Bondage is destroyed. Mashraim is destroyed. Hashatan is destroyed, because he represents all of this. And he's going to call upon us to remember this throughout eternity. Throughout eternity. He's even going to call us to remember this in the millennial reign. But if you are that remnant within the remnant, he's calling us to remember this right now. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death. Mashraim, destroyed forever. Par'ah, Hashatan, crime, destroyed. Bondage, destroyed forever. And he wants us to remember. Nor mourning, nor crying. And there shall be no more pain, for the former matters have passed away. And he who was sitting on the throne said, see, I make all matters new. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and trustworthy. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Law and the Taru'ah, the beginning and the everlasting covenant. To the one who thirsts, I shall give of the fountain of the water of life without payment. The one who overcomes shall inherit all this, and I shall be his Elohim, and he shall be my son. And he shall be my son. Let's take a look at a couple of more texts, a couple of more precepts, and we're going to be done. And we're going to be done. Barak Yahuwah. As Abba spoke, there is a remnant within a remnant, and he's calling upon that remnant within a remnant to remember this day, to remember something. He's calling upon that remnant within a remnant to remember something. Let's look at Psalms 98, the 98th chapter. Let's look at Psalms, the 98th chapter. Let's look at Tahalim of Psalms, the 98th chapter. The 98th chapter. You see, there's going to be a remnant within a remnant who are first fruits, who are the first to be redeemed from the earth, who were delivered and saved from the hour of trial, who in accordance with Revelation 12 were what? Were delivered from Mashraim. Yes, they will be. Will be delivered from Mashraim. Yes, they will be. Because it reads there in Revelation 12 that there is a remnant, there's a woman there that is brought to the wilderness. And after Hashatan, Par'ah is thrown down to the earth after the battle, he's going to come down. He's going to come down and pursue that woman into the wilderness, that remnant, and attempt to destroy her. But he will not be able to destroy her. He is going to spew water out of his mouth in an attempt to destroy her. But Abba is going to cause the earth to open up its mouth and drink the water and save the woman. And when he understands that he cannot harm this remnant within the remnant, this remnant that has been redeemed from the earth, the remnant that has been delivered from Par'ah, that has been delivered from Mashraim and brought into the wilderness, he then turns from the woman. He then turns from the remnant and goes to the remnant of her seed, the rest of them. The rest of them. He then goes to the remnant of her seed and persecutes them. And he's going to persecute them for 42 months, for 3.5 years. And so if you think you're remnant, then there ought to be a special celebration in your heart this day. Not only for what we look forward to, for what Abba just spoke and revealed, but for what he's already done. For what he has already done. Looking at Psalms 98 verses 1 through 9. Sing to Yahuwah a new song. A new song. Where have we heard this before? Where have we heard this before? Sing to Yahuwah a new song. I declare to you that we've heard this in Revelation 14, where 144,000 are going to touch down on Mount Zion and are going to be given a song that no one else can sing. A new song that no one else can sing. That no one else can sing. The 144,000, the first fruit of the first fruits, redeemed from the earth, redeemed from the hour of trial, redeemed from Hashatan, redeemed from bondage, redeemed from Taru'ah, redeemed from crime, redeemed from death. Barak Yahuwah. Sing to Yahuwah a new song, for he has done wonders. His right hand and his Kadosh arm has brought him Yeshua, deliverance. Yahuwah has made known his deliverance. His righteousness he has openly shown before the eyes of the nations. Before the eyes of the nation. Listen, he has remembered. He has remembered Zakah, his kindness, his loving commitment, and his trustworthiness to the house of Yasha'al. To the house of Yasha'al, to his first fruits. All the ends of the earth have seen the Yeshua of our Elohim. Raise a shout. Raise a shout. If you are the remnant within a remnant, raise a shout. Now this word here for shout is what? It is the Aramaic word ru'ah. 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 It is related to Taru'ah. Taru'ah. So we are to raise a shout. Ru'ah to Yahuwah. All the earth. Break forth in song. Celebrate and sing praises. Sing to Yahuwah with the lyre and the voice of a song, with trumpets and the voice of a shofar. Raise a shout, ru'ah, ru'ah, before Yahuwah, the sovereign. Let the sea roar and all that fills it, the world and all who dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains sing together for gladness before Yahuwah. For he shall come to judge the earth. For he shall come to judge the earth. He judges the world in righteousness, and the people in straightness, and the people in straightness. And so Taru'ah is forever. Taru'ah is forever. We are going to be Taru'ah, shouting for gladness. Taru'ah, throughout eternity. Throughout eternity. And remembering what it is that Yahuwah has delivered us from. And remembering what it is that he has delivered us from. And so we must also now, if you are remnant within a remnant, if you are the remnant within the remnant, we must also remember that the blood, the dam, it still delivers from Mashraim, from crime, and from bondage, and from death. It still delivers from Mashraim, or crime, or bondage, or death, or Par'ah, or Hashatan. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. The question is, have you been delivered from Mashraim, crime, bondage, and death? Because if you have received this Ruach, then you are what? You are under no more obligation to commit crime. You are under no more obligation to commit crime. And if we don't commit crime, we have what? Been delivered from death unto life. We have been delivered from death unto life. Write this down, and we're going to run through these final precepts, and we're done. Matthew, the first chapter, verses 18 through 21. Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 21. Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 21. But the birth of Yahusha, Mashiach, was as follows. After his mother Maryam was engaged to Yahushua, before they came together, she was found to be pregnant from the Kadosh Ruach. And Yahushua, her husband, being righteous and not wishing to make a show of her, had in mind to put her away secretly. But while he thought about this, see, a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to him in a dream, saying, Yahushua, son of Dawood, do not be afraid to take Maryam as your wife, for that which is in her was brought forth from the Kadosh Ruach. And she shall give birth to a son, And you shall call his name Yahusha. Why? For he shall deliver his people from their crimes, from bondage, from Mashraim, from death. So if you have received him, if you have received the Hamashiach, even now, remnant within the remnant, then that means that we have been delivered from our crimes, from bondage, from Mashraim, and from death. He is calling for us to remember this. To remember this, because he did not have to do this. He is calling us to remember this with a day of blowing, with a day of shouting, with a day of gladness, with a day of dancing, with a day of celebration. He is calling for us to remember this not only now, remembering what he's done for us now by his shed dung, but remembering what it points towards to in the millennial reign, and remembering what it points towards throughout eternity. Throughout eternity. Indeed, write this down. Exodus the 12th chapter. Exodus the 12th chapter, verses 1 through 13. Exodus the 12th chapter, verses 1 through 13. Beginning at verse 1. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and to Aharon in the land of Mashraim, saying, this new month is the beginning of new months for you. It is the first new month of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Yasha'al, saying, on the 10th day of this new month, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of beings, according to each man's need. According to each man's need, you make your count for the lamb. Let the lamb be a perfect one, a year and a year-old male. Take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same new month. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Yasha'al shall slay it between the evenings, and they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they sat, where they eat it. And they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread. If you don't understand by now, all of the feasts point towards the same thing. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. All of them point towards our Yeshua, point towards our deliverance. And so they must all be used, intertwined. They must all be intertwined and looked upon as pointing towards the same thing. All pointing towards the same thing, and that is our deliverance. And they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire, with unleavened bread, with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boil it all with water, but roast it in fire, its head with its legs and its inward parts. And do not leave it until morning. And what remains of it until morning you are to burn with fire. And this is how you eat it. Your loins girded. Your loins girded. He has given us a song, Maspaka. Are your loins girded? Have you girded your loins? Oh, gird your loins, O Zion. Our redemption draws nigh. And this is how you eat it. Your loins girded. Your sandals on your feet. And your staff in your hand. Oh, he's given us a song. Is your staff in your hand, Maspaka? Is your staff in your hand? Do you recognize this Muad season? Do you recognize it? Do you recognize this Muadim, this Muadah? Do you recognize it? And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Pasach of Yahuwah. And I shall pass through the land of Mashraim. And I shall pass through the land of Mashraim on that night. And shall strike all the firstborn in the land of Mashraim. We must remember. We must remember. Both now. We must remember right now what he's delivered us from. He has delivered us from death and brought us into his marvelous light. He's rescued us from death into life. And we must remember and celebrate this day like we've lost our proverbial minds, both man and beast. And on all the mighty ones of Mashraim I shall execute judgment. I am Yahuwah. And the blood, the dam shall be a sign. And the blood, the dam, shall be a sign. This is the Abbaite word, A'uf. A'uf, A'uf, Aleph, U, Ta. Aleph, U, Ta, A'uf. It shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I shall pass over you. I shall pass over you. In other words, you will live when I see the blood on you. You will live. I have delivered you from Mashraim. Why? Because I see the blood on you. I see the dumb on you. You will live. You will live. You will be delivered from death. You will be delivered from bondage. You will be delivered from crime. You will be delivered from Taru'ah, because I see the dumb, the blood on you. See, not everyone has the dumb on them. Not everybody has the dumb on them. Some profess to have the dumb, but in truth, they do not have the dumb on them. But if you are the remnant within the remnant, then the dumb has been applied to you. The dumb, reading here, and let the plague not come you or to destroy you. Let me read this again. And the dumb shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the dumb, I shall pass over you, and let the plague not come on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Mashraim. When I strike the land of Mashraim. If you're remnant within the remnant, then this dumb has been applied to your doorpost. This dumb has been applied to your doorpost. He has delivered us from bondage. He has delivered us from Taru'ah. He has delivered us from Mashraim. He has delivered us from crime. And he is calling us to remember on this yom. He is calling us to remember what it is that he has delivered us from, and what it is that we have to look forward to, and we are to celebrate like we've lost our proverbial minds. Let's look quickly at A'uf. A'uf. Let's look quickly at A'uf. It is Strong's Hebrew 226. Strong Hebrew 226. A'uf. It is comprised of Aleph, U, Ta. Aleph, U, Ta. Let's take away the U and let's just say Aleph, Ta. Aleph, Ta. So we understand what? That the Aleph, Ta is Yahuwah. The Aleph, Ta is Yahusha. The Aleph, the blood, the Dam is Yahuwah. The Dam is Yahusha. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The Dam is Yahusha. Let's look closer. Aleph, U, Ta. Aleph, U, Ta. And so on this day, we must remember that it is the blood, the Dam, that delivers us from Mashraim, and that has delivered us from Mashraim, which is what the blowing of the trumpet means. It means being delivered. Yes, it does. It is a war cry. It is a time of celebration. We have been delivered from death into life. We have been delivered from Mashraim into eternal life. Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And it is the Dam that joins us into covenant with Yahuwah. And he is only coming back with the blowing of the trumpet for his covenant people. For his covenant people. And if you are the remnant within the remnant, then this Dam has already been applied to your doorpost. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. The Dam applied to our doorpost is the sign of the renewed covenant. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And he's coming back for his bride. Indeed, in Revelation 14, it says there that he's coming back for maidens, for virgins, for almas who have followed their husband, who have followed their husband's voice wherever he led them. Yes, he's the Dam represents the renewing of the covenant. Hence, where we see the Aleph and the Ta, wherever we see the Ta, it is representative of covenant. It is representative of Yahuwah. It is representative of Yahuwah. The U is a representation again of a tent peg. Of a tent peg, or it represents something that affixes and joins together. And so we have the Aleph, which we have the Aleph and the Ta. We have the U, which joins, which is a representation of a tent peg or something that affixes or joins. And so with A'uf and the Dam being a sign, we know that what? That the Dam is the sign, is a sign and a seal and a mark of the everlasting covenant. And so if you've been sealed by the Dam on your doorpost, and indeed we are a house, we are that house, we are the family of Yahuwah, we are the Ba'ith, the house, the family of Yahuwah. And as his family and as his house, as his Ba'ith, if we are the remnant within the remnant, He has already applied the dam to our doorpost. Yes, he has. Yes, he has, because we have his ruach, which the dam represents. Indeed, in dam, we have the Abarit letters dalat and mam. Dalat and mam. What does dalat mean? Dalat means door. It means door. Indeed, he's applied it to our doorpost. He's applied the dam to our doorpost. Mam it is represented by water. Water is always representative of Ruach. Water is always representative of Ruach. And so the dam, or Ruach, is what seals and delivers, and what delivers us from Masraim. It delivers us from Masraim. And so we know that dam, again, is representative of the Ruach HaKadosh. And so if you have the Ruach HaKadosh now, you have been delivered from Masraim. You've been delivered from Taru'ah. You've been delivered from crime. You've been delivered from death. You've been delivered from bondage. And he wants us now to remember. To remember. And you and I, we have a vantage point such that we understand the significance of the dam and the great magnitude of the dam. We understood that all the dam of Yahushua was drained from his body for us. All the dam of Yahushua was drained from his body for us. So that why? So that he could deliver us from our crimes. So that he could deliver us from Taru'ah, from death, from bondage, from Masraim. And he's calling upon us to remember this on this Yom, like we've lost our proverbial minds. And he's calling for us to look forward to the millennial reign, when Hashatan is going to be locked up, when crime, when death, when Masraim, when Taru'ah is going to be locked up for 1,000 years. And he's calling us to look forward to when Masraim is finally destroyed forever. When Hashatan, when Taru'ah, when bondage and slavery is finally destroyed forever. And when we will be making a celebratory sound throughout eternity, blowing the shofar throughout eternity, shouting Ru'ah throughout eternity, and remembering that which he has delivered us from. Remembering that which he has delivered us from. So again, sign, A'uf, it means sign, a signal, or a distinguishing mark, a banner. It also means what? It means remembrance. Sign, A'uf, also means remembrance. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It also means remembrance. It also means banner, a sign or a signal, a miraculous sign, and it is also a warning. It also means warning. It sounds very similar to Taru'ah. It sounds very similar to Taru'ah, and it sounds very similar to Zakar and Zakrun. And so it sounds familiar because they're related. This is what he wants us to remember. This is what he wants us to remember. And to this day, celebrate like we've lost our proverbial minds. Barak Yahuwah. One more text and we're done. One more text and we're done. 1 John, Yahuwah and Allah, 1 John. And I call your attention again, 1 John, the first chapter. If you are the remnant within the remnant, if you are a remnant within the remnant, this should have special significance to you, because it is the remnant within the remnant that he wants to deliver from the time of trial. He wants to deliver the remnant within the remnant from Masraim first. He has delivered the remnant within the remnant from Masraim first, because he's given us his Ruach. And if we have his Ruach, if we truly have his Ruach, then he wants to deliver us from the time of trial, from the hour of trial. And so if you indeed are a remnant within the remnant, this day should hold special significance for you, and you should celebrate it. We should celebrate it like we've lost our proverbial minds. Indeed, I remind you again that he spoke to us this morning that, behold, I'm coming soon. Behold, I am coming soon. That wasn't for everyone. That wasn't for everyone. That is for a remnant within a remnant. Let's look at John, first chapter, verse 1 through 7. What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked upon, and our hands have handled, concerning the word of life. And the life was manifested, and we have seen, and bear witness and announce to you that everlasting life, which was with the Father and was manifested to us. We announce to you what we have seen and heard, so that you too might have fellowship with us. And truly our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Yahushua Mashiach. And we write this to you in order that your gladness, this is a day of gladness. This is a day of gladness and shouting, Ru'ah. And we write this to you in order that your gladness might be complete. And this is the message which we have heard from him and announced to you, that Elohim is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and are not doing the truth. But if we walk in light, if we walk the ancient path, if we walk in light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. We have fellowship with one another. And the blood of Yahushua Mashiach does what? Cleanse us from all crime. It delivers us from Mashrayim. It delivers us from Par'ah. It delivers us from slavery. It delivers us from crime. It delivers us from death. And the blood of Yahushua Mashiach, his son, cleanses us from all crime. So if you believe that you are a remnant within the remnant, I know we're nothing. We're nothing but dirt. That's all we are. But if you believe that you are a remnant within a remnant, you're called to remember this day. You're called to remember this day and celebrate this day like you've lost your proverbial mind. Barak Yahuwah. Celebrate, O Zion. Celebrate, O Zion. Celebrate, O Zion. Redemption draw nigh. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah.